Alright, hey guys, welcome back. So today, for today's project, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling the carbs off the Indy Lite and giving them a thorough cleaning, because this sled's been sitting for 2 years, and more likely the carbs are probably full of water and sediment and probably a little bit of everything else. So what we're going to do is I've just been looking at the sled and the layout of everything. And it looks like to do it correctly, I had to pull out the seat and the console and the tank, which is fine because I really wanted to do that anyway, because the seat has a little bit of water in it, so I want to take the seat off anyway. I'm going to put it in my house and let it drain to get some of the water out. And I want to drain the fuel tank anyway, because more than likely the tank has some water in it. So even though it looks like it's a little bit involved to get the carbs off, shouldn't be that big of a deal. So let's show you how the air box is in this thing and why you have to take it out. You know, I could be wrong, but the way I'm looking at it, I think that's the way you have to do it. So, you know, obviously there's the engine, there's the two carbs, and here's the air box. And if you look, this is the tank, and the only way to get the air box off the carbs is the air box has to slide out that way, and right now it's right up against the tank, so there's no way for the air box to come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start removing items and go from there, and hopefully get this thing apart without too much drama. So let's go ahead and take the seat off first, and we'll do that next. Thanks. Alright, so what you need to do to get the seat off these older Polarises, there's actually two retaining screws on the leading edge. There's one right there, and there's another one on the corresponding side. You want to remove those. And then as far as what holds the seat down into the tunnel, there's two nuts and bolts going through the trunk area. So what you want to do is you're going to spray down with WD-40, because more likely they are going to be rusted. Let those sit. And those are 7/16. So what you're going to want to do is use a 6-point socket to get those off and go from there. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so the seat's off. Didn't go as originally as I planned, as I pretty much expected. All the hardware on this thing is pretty much rusted solid and crudded up and frozen and everything else. So I wasn't able to get the two bolts that hold the seat back down to the tunnel using a ratchet and a socket. So what I ended up doing is I used 4.5 inch angle grinder to essentially grind off the back of the heads from the fasteners from underneath the tunnel and pop those out. So here's what's left of them. You know, just grind the head off of it and then use a drift to knock them out. So not that big of a deal. I'll just replace those with stainless steel hardware when I put it back together. But so this is pretty much what I'm looking at as far as getting the gas tank retainer off. Again, the hardware is pretty much rusted on. A little bit better access as far as than the seat was, but gonna go ahead and do this next and see what happens and go from there. So let's get to it. Have no fear, angle grinder is here. So as expected, just like the rear seat bolts, those things were pretty much rusted solid. They just spun, and no chance of getting them off. So again, I just used the angle grinder and zipped off the heads and made short work of it. So again, if you guys don't have one of these tools, I would highly recommend picking it up. It really is a lifesaver in situations like this. Really make short work of rusted fasteners, assuming that you have access to them. As far as getting the angle grinder in there, but that made short work of it. Took all of 5 minutes to get those three fasteners off. So now that it's off, you know, the tank is loose. So the only thing holding the tank on is obviously the gas cap on the filler neck and the plastic holding the console over the tank. And just by quickly looking at it, there's a couple fasteners. There's one right here, there's one right here. There's two more on the other side that are holding it down, and I think that's about it. Doesn't look like there's that much holding it down. So we'll go ahead and zip that off and lift it up and be able to slide the tank back. One thing to note, there's no way to get this console off without removing the bars, because the console isn't split. It actually goes over the steering post, then the bars go on, and then all the controls go on. So there's really no way to get the console completely off unless you want to commit to take the bars off, which I'm not going to do. So I'm just going to loosen everything up, lift it up, and be able to slide the tank out. So let's go ahead and do that next. Alright, so we went ahead and removed those 4 fasteners, and we're able to now lift the console up over the tank. It's starting to slide out. Alright, so the only thing that's really holding it in right now is the main fuel line. And see if you can take a look at that right there. So all we want to do is remove that spring clamp, and the tank will slide back out. So let's go and do that now. Alright, so the tank's been removed. So there's actually the vent line too, that you want to disconnect that. I forgot to show that before I pulled the tank out. So there's the main pickup line, there's the vent line. And if you noticed, people who are paying attention will realize that's a Skidoo gas cap. And if you're ever wondering why and how you can tell, there's instructions in English and in French. So that's a Skidoo gas cap on a Polaris Indy Lite. So, alright, so now that the tank's been removed, what we'll show is, so there's the back of the airbox. Now we're going to go ahead and tackle that next and pull that out. All in all, the process is pretty simple. If your sled isn't rested like this with bad hardware, it'll probably take all 10 minutes to pop out. But anyway, it's kind of one of the things you're going to run into with a machine that's 20 years old. It's kind of to be expected, but it's not anything that you can't overcome with some simple tools. Just as a note, if you're ever wondering why you should never store your sled outdoors, even under a cover, here's a perfect example why. The seat's been sitting in the garage here for literally 10 or 15 minutes up against the post, and this is how much water has drained out of this seat in 10 minutes. You guys have to remember, these seats are just nothing more than foam and a little bit of vinyl covering them. And at the end of the day, it's a sponge, so it soaks up water. So if you're storing these things long term, you really want to get them outside out of the elements. Just because you have a cover on it doesn't mean it's not gonna absorb water, because they do. So just something to be aware of. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my seat inside, put it down in the basement next to my boiler, which is nice and warm, and I'm just going to let it sit there for like a week and just let the water drain, and it's going to dry out. So, but anyway, just something to be aware of. Keep your sled stored inside, covered, and everything else. And if it has been stored outside for any length of time, take the seat off and let it drain, or otherwise it's going to rot out. So, alright, so let's go ahead and pull the airbox off now and go to the next step. Alright, so now what we want to do is take the airbox out. So, what you want to do first is you want to remove the fuel pump, because the fuel pump is attached to the airbox. So all you're going to do is just remove those 2 Phillips head screws, pop that out, and then the fuel pump will be able to be pulled away from the airbox. And then there's just a retention spring holding the airbox onto the tunnel. So you're going to go ahead and unloosen that, and then the airbox should be able to come out of the carbs. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so the airbox has been pulled back. Alright, just slides right back, all right, and then it'll pop off the inlets on the carbs. All right, so this is why you guys need to clean your carbs. They're not supposed to be green, all right, and this is a result of just the carb sitting, old gas, and varnish, and everything else. These are pretty bad, and this is why you need to do your seasonal maintenance and clean these things. Because sometimes, you know, this is kind of a bad example, but sometimes things can look good on the outside, but once you start pulling stuff apart, you'll be kind of amazed as what the actual condition is. So this is a perfect example why you want to clean your carbs. All right. So as far as to get the carbs off, there's two intake boots that hold the carbs onto the engine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen those that one screw on that clamp on both of them. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the throttle slides out of the bodies just by loosening this cap, and then the slide will come right out. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the choke plunger as well, and we're gonna clean that. So essentially we're gonna leave the throttle cable and the choke cable plunger attached to the sled. We're not going to remove those. We're going to take the carbs off first and remove all the linkage and everything else, and then we'll take the carb bodies off and bring them to the bench and start cleaning them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright guys, so I went ahead and pulled the throttle slides out in one of the choke plungers, and there you go. There's another reason why to do maintenance on the carbs, because there's quite a bit of varnish on that particular choke plunger. I'm going to remove the one on the clutch side once I pull the carb out, just for a little bit better access. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're pulling the carbs off, make sure you remember which one is left, which one is right, or which one is PTO, which side is magneto. Because more often than not, the carbs are jetted a little bit differently on the fan cools, because sometimes, you know, the one cylinder will run a little bit hotter than the other, and it's compensated with the jetting on it. So make sure that when you pull the carbs off, you remember which one is left and which one is right. The way I'm going to do it is just by leaving the fuel hoses on. I know the one on the PTO side is a little bit longer than the one on the magneto side, even though I'm going to replace it. But that's the easiest way to remember which one is which. So why don't we go ahead and remove these and bring them on the bench and start taking the bowls off and everything else. Alright, so now we're back at the bench. The carbs have been removed, and so the one on the right is the PTO side, and the one on the left is the magneto side. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to start taking the thing apart. I would recommend only doing one at a time, so that way you don't mess up any parts as far as jetting or anything like that. That may be different from the carbs. But essentially the way to take it out is there's 4 screws holding the float bowl onto the bottom of the carb. You're going to go to remove those, and then the bowl will come right off. This hose is what they call the water trap. If there's any water in your fuel, because water is heavier than gasoline, the water will always sink to the bottom first, and then the water will go into the water trap, and then it will make its way out of the carb. But more often than not, if the sled's been sitting for a long time, especially with today's fuels, with the ethanol, the ethanol actually pulls moisture out of the air, and you'll accumulate a lot of water in the carbs as well as the tank. That's why we're pulling the tank, because I'm sure it's just full of water. So let's go ahead and pull the bowls off and see what we got. Alright, so once you remove those 4 Phillip head screws, the bottom of the carb, or the float bowl, will detach from it. I already went ahead and removed the bottom of the water trap off, and just so I can take a look at it and clean it as well. Alright, so then what you're looking at the bottom of the carb is, this is your needle and seat. Well, it's actually your fuel inlet that's controlled by the floats, and below is the needle and seat. and that orifice, that's your pilot jet. That is responsible for startup. This one right here, that is your main jet. That's for running. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the pilot jet and the main jet out and go ahead and clean those out. And then we're also going to remove the float level. And the way to do that is there's a pin that holds the float lever on. And basically once you take it out, it's going to slide out, and then that brass assembly will come out. And then we'll have access to the needle and seat. So if you look, you can see there's quite a bit of varnish within the carb, so it's a good thing that we're pulling these things apart. So let's go ahead and do that now and take it apart. Alright guys, so once you have everything out, you know, your main jet, your pilot jet, the needle and seat, the float lever, and everything else, essentially what you want to do is, the first thing you want to do is take a container, put all your jets, and fill it with some carb cleaner and just let it soak. And just, you know, let that soak while you're cleaning the carb body and everything else. So what you want to do now is essentially you just want to take some carb cleaner and start spraying it down every orifice that you can see on this thing. And, you know, don't be shy on it. Just completely douse it and really go at it. You know, flip it around, go at it. You know, hit all the orifices in the front. You know, don't forget the choke lever plunger inlet. Make sure you do that. Clean the slide body as well, and then just keep going at it until all it's nice and clean and you don't see any residue. And what I would recommend is, especially when it's this bad, take a microfiber towel, such as something like this, which is going to be lint free, and then just go in it, and if you have any type of heavy residue, just go with the microfiber, clean all the internals off again, get any heavy residue off, and then hit it with some carb cleaner again. Don't forget your float bowl. You can actually take the floats out. You can take these two caps off the posts and do the same thing. Go ahead and clean that out with the same method, using carb cleaner, and then wipe it down with a microfiber, and then go ahead and clean it again. And then once you have everything clean, what you're going to want to do is take some compressed air and then start blowing all the orifices out and make sure everything's nice and clean. And then once you do that, once again, hit it with some carb cleaner again and make sure everything's nice and clean. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and check all the jets, make sure we can see through them, make sure that there's no blockages, and we can see light through them, and then put everything back together. Alright, so now what you want to do is essentially take all your nice clean parts and start doing your reassembly and putting everything back together. So install your pilot jet, install your main jet, install your needle and seat, install your float arm, and then install the pin, and then put the float bowl back on the carb body and put it back together. So why don't we go ahead and do that next, and we'll go from there, go to the next step. Alright guys, so everything's back together. I went ahead and replaced the line for the water trap and the clamps. I still need to go out and get some fuel line to replace the lines for the supply, but everything's back together. Everything's nice and clean. One thing I did, but I didn't show I didn't show the process, was I removed the pilot air jet, which is right by my thumb, and go ahead and don't forget to clean that. What you're wanting to do is, so you don't mess with the settings, what you want to do is tighten it up and count the amount of turns before it gets lightly seated and you can't turn anymore, and just make a mental note. This one had to be 1.5 turns from lightly seated, so what I did is I pulled it out, cleaned it, and then put it back in, and then seated it, and then did 1.5 turns back out. So essentially that's it, other than the rusted hardware on the seat, and the tank retainer wasn't that big of a deal. So go ahead and pull the carbs apart, and especially if the sled's been sitting for anything over a year, more likely it's going to be like this. So as always, if there's any thoughts, questions, concerns, anything like that, go ahead and put them in the comments box, and I'll make sure I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And again, as always, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.